Back to Republic India's #1 English news channel. Viewers, US President Joe Biden is on a visit to Poland, where he is set to meet his Polish counterpart Andrzej Duda at the Warsaw Presidential Palace. Shavan Sen is live at the Presidential Palace right now, and we're going to hear from him. Shavan, if you can hear us, my question to you is, yesterday there was a lot of talk over how Biden could potentially meet Zelensky here. While I ask you to tell us about what else is expected as well, could you tell us what was the controversy there? Apparently that is not happening.
Well, there was absolutely no such reports of a meeting between President Zelensky and President Biden. Perhaps that is more of a propaganda, because given the fact that all that President Biden essentially said in that press conference that took place was that he perhaps wanted to be on the ground, a crossover, because remember the city that he was in, the Polish city, was about 60 miles away from the Ukrainian border. And that's the reason why President Biden essentially expressed his disappointment that he could not get a first-hand experience of what's really happening on the ground. And not to forget, that's the place where we have seen maximum influx of refugees, all Ukrainians who are basically entering the Polish city. And Poland has seen about 2 million refugees coming in since 24th of February, the highest in terms of the numbers, sheer numbers that the European nations have actually witnessed. But let me just, for all our viewers who are tuning in right now, just tell you where we are right now and what is it really expected in the hours to come. It's around 8 o'clock in the morning here in Warsaw. This is going to be the last leg of the European tour of President Biden. And what you see behind me, I'll step aside and just show you, that's the presidential palace. As you can see, all the police personnel on the ground right now for all the security checks before that bilateral meeting actually takes place between President Duda and President Biden. It's going to be a crucial meeting altogether, given the fact that the focus essentially is going to be how to really manage the humanitarian crisis that's unfolding before our eyes. In terms of the military aid or the concrete help that perhaps Ukraine is going to actually get from the European nations, that's already been discussed in the emergency meeting of the NATO summit, as well as the G7 and the European Council meeting, which was attended by President Biden. And one thing became abundantly clear is that they are not going to set their foot inside the Ukrainian soil right now. The NATO troops are not going to do that. In fact, they have basically bolstered their presence along the eastern flank, especially in countries like Hungary and Poland. These are the places where the military bases have been bolstered, but they're not going to really enter Ukraine, number one. Second, in terms of what is going to deter Russia, that was part of the multiple meetings that have taken place. Economic sanctions, yes, that has happened in terms of increasing it. In fact, United Kingdom did actually take some more steps in terms of economic sanctions, but has that really had any sort of an impact on the ground is the bigger question, because not to forget, Russia still, which happens to be one of the largest exporters of oil, is still continuing doing business with several European nations, especially, for example, with Germany, Finland, Denmark. These are countries which are still receiving the oil from Russia, which means that the transaction is still going on. And that's exactly what the Ukrainians are pointing out, that if the business continues, you mean you're paying the taxes, you are basically allowing this sort of a military aggression and aiding the military aggression of the Russians. But important to point out here is that, Ankit, what we are seeing on the ground, there were multiple initial estimates suggesting, or inputs that were suggesting, that perhaps within days of the invasion, Kiev and various other cities are going to fall into the hands of the Russians, and that's not really happened. In fact, latest intelligence inputs coming in from the British, coming in from the United States, essentially indicating that the Russians have basically halted their operations in the capital city of Kiev. And that's a big move, perhaps one is looking at. They've gone into some defensive positions in the capital city of Kiev. And right now there is also a Russian general that has been quoted by a Pentagon official saying that Russia is right now concentrating more on the eastern side, basically the Donbas region, the very place from where the so-called military operation actually began. So if that's really happening, is it a move of trying to remobilize, or are we really looking at a protracted, longer phase of the war? Is something that we'll have to wait and watch, because there are mixed signals really coming in as far as the end game is concerned. Is Putin really going to go ahead with the end game? Is that going to really happen? Not very sure at this point in time, because even the European nations are suggesting that there could be a second phase of this entire war, which would essentially mean chemical weapons to be used. Similarly, this is in a similar manner that it was used in Syria. If that really happens, how exactly will NATO respond to that? So that was also discussed in that NATO summit or the emergency meeting that took place in Brussels about 24 hours ago, and that's the crucial part as to how exactly will the European nation now try to help Ukraine when they have decided not to go inside, because Ukraine is now saying that if you cannot help us in terms of shutting the sky, then perhaps you can give us the military aid that is required. And look at the demand that Ukraine has put out right now. On a daily basis, they are saying that they need about 1,000 missiles to carry out their counter-offensive offenses. And in terms of multiple Javelin missiles, Stinger missiles, these are the demands that have been made to ensure that they are in a position to counter the aggression of the Russians. And that's going to be the crucial part. How exactly will the European nations, along with the United States, really aid Ukraine? That's the key question.
Right, Shavan and Ridul there reporting from Poland. Viewers, Republic, the only channel, Indian channel that is at the presidential palace in Poland.